Morning, everyone. Morning, everyone. I know a number of you, but I don't know all of you, obviously. You don't know me. I'm based in the community services team at NHS South Tyne Weir, and we're a fairly new organisation in that we're an integrated management structure. And we now cover Gateshead, South Tyneside and Sunderland, whereas previously there were 3 separate, for management purposes, PCTs. There's now one management structure, so we cover all 3. And we're a team, we're in our infancy, so there are a number of things that we have to now do. And one of the key things for us is working more closely and collaboratively with the third sector. So, which is why I'm delighted that I've been invited to just give a little bit of a talk on procurement, because that was my brief. I'll try not to get into too many technical details, because that would be so boring. And it's also just to give you a flavour of what we're doing, what we're planning, and what we're going to try and do to try work with you in the future. So I'll set the scene. I've been involved with quite a lot of the work with the Sunderland local authority, so we're involved in a lot of procurement issues with them. So we're trying to collaborate as much as possible. So bear with me on some of the issues really. What I'm going to talk about is the national guidance that we've got, what we're working to, just the parameters, no detail there, because I say it really would be dry. The EU rules we're working to, national best practice, which is not mandatory, obviously, because it's best practice, but what we're trying to actually mirror within the PCT. And it was published in 2008 as DH guidance, Department of Health, sorry. Then there is the task force report on the third sector. Many of you will be familiar with it, will have already read it cover to cover. Some of you will think, what? But what I've tried to do, or what I'll try to do here, is give a flavour of what we're trying to adopt as best practice, so that we can work with you as much and openly as possible. We do have a policy for procurement in NHS South Tyne Weir, which was agreed in November, and it's just the new tendering rules that we've given ourselves. Then I'll move on to what's happened, as in the early work that we've been involved in when we first set up as a team, and then what's planned in terms of collaboration, profiling the service specifications, national and local community services contract, and what we call stimulating the market. But I'm going to go into more detail to that. Right, in terms of the National Procurement Guide, if those of you familiar with it, I'll try not to bore you, but I'll be very quick in skimming through it. The PCTs have been set with its board, ideally the requirement that we agree a strategy for large, and they call it novel, contentious or repercussive tenders. I don't know what the definition of repercussive is, but never mind. What we're trying to do is within that is keep to transparency and proportionality. I know it's a term that's come up quite a lot in the funding and procurement discussions about the compact. We are endeavouring to make it proportionate with the contract that any one of you have as a funder when we've agreed one with you. And be non-discriminatory and equality of treatment. And I know that all sounds a little like apple pie and custard, but we're going to try and meet that as much as possible. The third sector commissioning task force, the key issues for us really, and I've just drawn the 3 key points, was that we provide funding stability, and I know that will be music to your ears, a common language on cost structures and fair pricing. Now, we haven't achieved that, and we know, and that's a lot to do with whether it's a grant or whether it's a contract with you, and how we agree pricing structure, and whether you get contributions to funding or whether it's on the basis of a contract with outcomes. But that's something we'd have to discuss with individual providers. And prepare fair and proportionate balance of risk with all providers. So that's the funders, i.e. us, and yourselves know as an organisation what it is that we're agreeing and what type of service that you're going to deliver on, and whether it's based on a contract or whether it's based on a grant. I'll admit that PCTs generally are fond of grants, I admit that. But it's something that we've got at the moment, and we're going to try and work as much as we can with you, because we're not abandoning the idea of grants by any means. In November last year, because it's a new integrated management structure, although there are 3 single PCTs still, we, as a PCT, IMS rather, decided to agree between the 3 and integrated management board that certain tender levels would be renewed because they were out of date. And as you can see from that, we're not required to tender as much for anything below 50,000, but will be over 80,000. Now we do have the national procurement rules to meet, and it's anything over 90,000 for national procurement if you're not a health body. So we've managed to avoid all of those rules at the moment. We haven't had to do any OJ procurement, but we are trying to keep to as much as possible a standard of that, of anything over 80,000 that would go for formal tender. And then there are formal quotations that the Department of, the DOF, Director of Finance, has agreed with the 3 PCTs. So we must obtain formal quotations for any work that looks as if it's going to be over 15,000. We of course have had a lot of discussion with the local authority about the funding and procurement code of practice. Anybody that's been involved in that will probably roll their eyes, but and I can see one at the moment. There's been a lot of good dialogue. There's been some contention every now and again, but I think we've come up with an agreed draft, which is now going for formal consultation. So there will be a 3-month period, I think it is, for everybody to consult on it. But as a PCT, as one of the main partners, we're certainly committed to that. And one of the main issues about that is full cost recovery and fair pricing. And I'm sure that that will be discussed ad nausea in the future between organisations as you've consulted on it. Prior to beginning of January 2008, because I was part of the team from the very start, I wanted to get some action going on what we were going to do about third sector, because I have to say it's been very haphazard. Some organisations within the former PCTs had worked hard with organisations, voluntary organisations, some less so. And I think public health have probably got a better record than many of commissioning services from the third sector generally, because little bits of money have been released from them in terms of grants or in terms of small tenders. But what I wanted to try and do was gather that together and collaborate a lot more and discuss what we'd like to do in the future. So we set up a series of workshops. It involved myself and our strategic development team, and we looked at priorities that we had to kind of adopt, and also to look at, well, how can we develop using the third sector task force recommendations. So within those workshops, there's one in December, one in February, one in March, and I think the one in March was Sunderland's